My son chose his mother-in-law over me on his wedding day, but I revealed an inspiring surprise. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, her carefully crafted smile wavering under the weight of a surprise no mother should face on her son's wedding day. Hours earlier, Mike had delivered the news, his face filled with youthful excitement, but her heart shriveled at the betrayal. He had asked his mother-in-law, someone she barely knew, to walk with him down the aisle instead of her, the woman who had devoted nearly 2 decades of her life to raising him as a single mother. The sting of his words echoed in her mind, making her stomach churn. Her life had revolved around this boy, the late-night study sessions, the soccer games, the endless encouragement. Every stitch she had sewn into his future now felt savagely undone. This was the day she had imagined from the moment he entered her world, filled with promise and love, instantly overshadowed by the cold realization that she was now second best. What had she done wrong? Doubts gnawed at her, and with each tick of the clock, her heart raced with a tumult of emotions, anger, sadness, and an unwanted nagging sense of loneliness that crept in like an unwelcome guest. As the time neared for the ceremony, Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, trying to breathe through the swelling disappointment. Who was she now if she was not the one he wanted beside him? Was her sacrifice so easily forgotten? The questions loomed, heavy and suffocating. In those moments that felt like eternity, she felt herself slipping. Her professional demeanor as a trusted nurse, the one who helped others navigate pain. But here she was, lost in her own sorrow and desperation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With shaking hands, she reached for her father's journal, an old leather-bound book filled with his heartfelt advice. It had been so long since she'd opened its pages, but today felt like it was calling her. In the flickering light, she traced her fingers over the familiar script, recalling the man who had taught her about hard work and loyalty, with every word a reminder of love that endured through trials. We are shaped by who we choose to stand by in our lives, one entry read. The words lit something deep inside her, sparking a determination she thought she had lost. She would not allow this moment of perceived betrayal to damage the core of their relationship. She wrote Mike a note explaining the significance of family, carefully wrapping the journal in soft velvet, an unexpected surprise for a day that felt entirely stripped of her significance. The minutes dwindled, a storm of emotion swirling within her. As the ceremony began, Sarah stood quietly at the back, clutching the heirloom to her chest. Mike stood at the altar, looking so much like the boy she had raised, every promise and every dream wrapped up in that moment. But another woman stood by his side, tears of joy illuminating her face, while Sarah fought against the tide of hurt. And then it happened. In the midst of vows and promises, a shift in the air, a brief glance. It was as if the whole world fell silent, and she held her breath as Mike's eyes found hers. A flicker of realization dawning on him, a moment that felt as if the universe had conspired for them to reconnect at last. Would he acknowledge her? Would that acknowledgement shift their entire day? Sarah poised herself, heart racing, caught between the hope of recognition and the anguish of impending abandonment. What would he say? Time seemed to stretch as Sarah stood frozen, a silent observer in the swirling sea of celebration and nervous anticipation. The moment hovered with a palpable tension, each second peeking into infinite possibilities. Her heart thudded loudly against the constraints of her chest, battling against the wave of emotions threatening to pull her under. When Mike's gaze met hers, uncertainty flickered across his face. It was a fleeting hesitation, and in that instant, Sarah's world tilted on a pivot. Questions raced through her mind. Should she smile to bridge the divide, or should she confront the unsaid words cloaked in that shared glance? Would revealing her pain at the altar now taint this joyous occasion, or would it force an important conversation that had remained unspoken for too long? As the vows continued to unravel before her, she realized that this wasn't just about having been replaced on a momentous day. It was a broader reflection of their evolving relationship, a mother who felt disregarded and a son who, in seeking a new family, perhaps inadvertently let go of the old. This realization struck like a lightning bolt, cleaving her from the haze of sorrow and nudging her toward empowerment. She could either stay tethered to the pain or find a pathway to healing. The decision solidified inside her. The journal she gripped against her heart wasn't just a relic of her father's wisdom. It was the catalyst for her own personal renaissance. She had always been the caregiver, the one who mended others' wounds, but today she needed to prioritize her own emotional well-being. The first step came from within. Summoning courage, Sarah took a deep breath, allowing the air to fill her lungs before gently releasing it. She reminded herself that the journey of motherhood was never defined by a single moment, and today's heartache could become an opportunity for growth. Maybe this wasn't merely a betrayal, but a moment for transformation. Meanwhile, on the altar, Mike finally broke away from the woman at his side. He stepped forward, the brightness of his expression dimming as he connected the dots of their shared history. The significance of those late-night conversations about dreams, fears, and shared laughter now weighed heavily in the reverberations of their silence. He hesitated, and Sarah could see the understanding bloom on his features. He took a step toward her, the threshold between them a chasm bridged by the unspoken. As if magnetized, they inched closer, and the world around them melted away. A newfound clarity sparkled in Mike's eyes, and for the first time, she sensed he was wrestling with the conflict of loyalty and love, as if he had just woken up to the reality of how much she had sacrificed. "Mom?" His voice broke the tension, soft yet resonant with so many unsaid things. His attempt to bridge the gap filled Sarah with an exhilarating rush of hope. She saw clearly now the love they shared was still intact, waiting to be revived. Sarah understood this could go in any direction. Would he embrace her message, or would he recoil in confusion and guilt? A million thoughts bombarded her, but she was ready to find out. Before they could exchange words, the present swarmed with anticipation. The wedding guests awaited the next promise, the next declaration of love, unaware of the revelation about to shift the foundation of their celebration. Yet in this moment of vulnerability, Sarah was engulfed in clarity. What awaited her was uncertain, but this was no longer about being left behind. Today was a chance to redefine their bond on the precipice of change. "Mom, no hard feelings, but," Mike began, the path set for revelation. "But is every story destined to be told? Could they navigate this emotional turmoil and rise stronger together?" The moment hung in the air, a cliffhanger of lost hopes and burgeoning new beginnings. What would happen next? Time stood still as Sarah grappled with the weight of Mike's unfinished sentence, an unwelcome intruder in their moment of connection. The span between them felt both impossibly vast and intimate, charged with unspoken truths that could shatter as easily as they could heal. She'd always thought that the bond she shared with Mike was unshakable, forged in countless battles of love and understanding through their years together. Yet here he was, on the brink of adulthood, teetering between old ties and new commitments. As if sensing the swell of her thoughts, Mike shifted his weight, anxiety fraying the tender corners of his expression. "But I want to make this right," he finally managed to say, words pouring out with an urgency that surprised them both. But is every story destined to be told? Could they navigate this emotional turmoil and rise stronger together? The moment hung in the air, a cliffhanger of lost hopes and burgeoning new beginnings. What would happen next? Time stood still as Sarah grappled with the weight of Mike's unfinished sentence, an unwelcome intruder in their moment of connection. The span between them felt both impossibly vast and intimate, charged with unspoken truths that could shatter as easily as they could heal. She'd always thought that the bond she shared with Mike was unshakable, forged in countless battles of love and understanding through their years together. Yet here he was, on the brink of adulthood, teetering between old ties and new commitments. As if sensing the swell of her thoughts, Mike shifted his weight, anxiety fraying the tender corners of his expression. "But I want to make this right," he finally managed to say, words pouring out with an urgency that surprised them both. His sincerity thrummed in the air, and Sarah felt the tension unwind just slightly within her. What would it mean to embrace this opportunity to be heard? Would her dreams of a reconciled relationship with her son rise to life? Or would the fear of his rejection loom larger than it ever had before? "Mike, I need you to understand something," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's okay to love both your new family and me. You don't have to choose." She saw his eyebrows knit together, a mark of contemplation, as he fought against an internal struggle. The warmth of the spring sun beamed through the venue windows, illuminating the uncertain joys and fresh fears shimmering in his eyes. Could he indeed navigate this balance? Did they both possess the necessary fortitude to acknowledge their individual pains? "Mom, I just want to be happy," he said, searching her face for reassurance. "I know," Sarah replied, an ember of resolve igniting within her. "And I want that too. But what about my happiness? I've spent so much time making sure you are okay." It struck her, the unyielding pattern she'd cultivated, always prioritizing his needs above her own, even at the cost of her sense of self. Yet today, amid the emotional chaos, she realized that stepping forward occasionally required an invitation for introspection, a request for reciprocity. "Let's talk," he suggested, his voice softening, though tinged with lingering uncertainty. "When this is all over, will you meet with me?" The next wave of understanding crashed against her, and she nodded slowly, confirming what perhaps had been hidden beneath the surface of their relationship all along. It was no longer solely about healing their past. It was about co-creating a future. With a gentle smile, she squeezed his hand. "Promise me you won't forget who I am in your journey." A relaxed tension replaced the firestorm of anxiety that had engulfed them moments before. Maybe they would rise from this wreckage, resurrecting a relationship battered but not broken. As the wedding ceremony rumbled on, Sarah caught fleeting glimpses of the laughter shared among guests and the intoxicating joy that elevated the morning air. For once, she felt momentarily uplifted. Perhaps it had taken this dramatic shift, a choice juxtaposing her role, to truly awaken the dormant parts within her. "Mom?" Mike's voice pulled her back. "This isn't goodbye, is it?" "Never," she stated, a newfound conviction coloring her words. "It's merely a new beginning." Yet little did she know that a storm of confrontation loomed ahead, forcing her to face not only the complexities of their relationship, but also the demands of a world that didn't always understand the weight of familial love. The wedding was not the end. It served as a prologue to a deeper battle, a confrontation they would ultimately need to face together. With a gentle smile, she squeezed his hand. "Promise me you won't forget who I am in your journey." A relaxed tension replaced the firestorm of anxiety that had engulfed them moments before. Maybe they would rise from this wreckage, resurrecting a relationship battered but not broken. As the wedding ceremony rumbled on, Sarah caught fleeting glimpses of the laughter shared among guests and the intoxicating joy that elevated the morning air. For once, she felt momentarily uplifted. Perhaps it had taken this dramatic shift, a choice juxtaposing her role, to truly awaken the dormant parts within her. "Mom?" Mike's voice pulled her back. "This isn't goodbye, is it?" "Never," she stated, a newfound conviction coloring her words. "It's merely a new beginning." Yet little did she know that a storm of confrontation loomed ahead, forcing her to face not only the complexities of their relationship, but also the demands of a world that didn't always understand the weight of familial love. The wedding was not the end. It served as a prologue to a deeper battle, a confrontation they would ultimately need to face together. Just as answers began to materialize, the question lingered in her heart. Would they have the courage to navigate the intricate web of emotions ahead? It was the moment of truth that awaited them. The aftermath of the wedding lingered like the scent of blooming flowers, intangible yet overpowering. Sarah moved through the crowd of guests, smiling and nodding, her heart heavy with fleeting moments shared with Mike. Each interaction felt like a pebble dropped into a vast ocean of unspoken words. Ripples of concern grew wider with each passing glance. Driving home, silence engulfed the car. Mike was beside her, but their closeness felt like a thin veil hiding deeper fissures beneath. She could see the gears turning in his mind, the struggle to reconcile his divided loyalties. How could he understand how much she had sacrificed, how every choice had weighed on her? She longed to voice her feelings, but doubted the dexterity of her own heart. "Mom, can we talk more about us?" His tentative inquiry shattered the quiet, sounding awkward and vulnerable. "Yes," she replied, grounding herself in this moment. "Absolutely." They drove on, words spiraling in Sarah's mind. What if their conversation could be the catalyst for the change they both desperately needed? The realization struck her. She had to be as honest with herself as she aimed to be with him. If she were truly to embrace this new beginning, her path must emerge alongside Mike's. They must tread into uncharted waters together. Pulling into the driveway, time felt sluggish. Each step toward the door amplified the weight of their circumstances. Sarah breathed in deeply, reminding herself she had the power to redefine her life, irrespective of the past. An inkling of determination blossomed within. What if this was her moment of transformation, not just for her son, but for herself? Inside the house, the familiar clutter of everyday life confronted her. The stack of unopened mail, the lingering scent of dinner from the night before. Each item felt like a marker of time lost. Yet it was also a reminder of stability. She led Mike into the living room, where the walls held witness to countless cherished memories. "Let's sit," Sarah suggested, her voice firmer now. As they settled into their places, the atmosphere shifted. She watched Mike fidget, his fingers twisting around a stray thread on his shirt. His anxiety mirrored the tumult in her heart. Struggling with words, she pushed through the apprehension that threatened to engulf her. "Mike, I realize I've defined myself too often through the lens of your life, and perhaps it's time for me to explore who I am outside of being your mother," she confessed, allowing the piece of her truth that had been buried too long to surface. The room fell into solemn silence as he processed her words. It was the moment for him to truly see her, not just a caretaker, but a woman with dreams and aspirations that had been placed on the back burner for far too long. She masked her vulnerability with a gentle smile, willing him to understand. "I want us both to be happy, but I also want to find joy outside this role. I want to pursue my passions again," she continued, emboldened. And I'd love for you to be a part of that journey as well. And what if I don't? What if I can't give you that? His voice wavered, fear stripping away the bravado he usually carried. You have your own path to forge, and that's important, but I need to discover mine now, too. I won't be your second choice or your fallback anymore, she replied, her heart racing at her own honesty. Would he conquer the layers of guilt that encumbered him? Would it feel like a betrayal or an opportunity for growth? Mike glanced away, but not before she saw a flicker of realization cross his face, a new understanding that perhaps would help him navigate the course of his own life. As they continued to explore their new perspectives, the tension that had once suffocated them seemed to dissipate. Yet Sarah knew that the real challenge lay ahead. They were venturing into a territory that required confrontation, not just with each other, but with the very fabric of their lives. Would Mike find the courage to balance his evolving identity with the pieces he cherished from his past? The question hung in the air, taunting her. The work was only beginning, but for Sarah, a newfound light simmered just beneath the surface, waiting to be embraced. Standing at the precipice of change, she couldn't shake the feeling that their conversation was merely a prelude. The journey ahead would be riddled with choices. Would they emerge stronger, or would the complexities of love pull them apart? The morning light crept through the slats of the blinds, illuminating the living room with a soft hue that felt both inviting and starkly honest. Sarah sat on the edge of the couch, lost in thought, the echo of her conversation with Mike lingering in her mind. The words had emerged unplanned, a confession ignited by a quest for authenticity, but now they seemed to take on a new weight. What if this commitment to personal discovery was just the tip of the iceberg? A cup of coffee brewed in the kitchen, its aroma stirring the air. Familiar rituals indeed. Yet today she viewed them through a lens sharpened by her resolve. She picked up her phone and contemplated scrolling through her contacts. Reaching out to friends felt necessary, but a nagging doubt crept in. Had she really invested in those relationships amidst the chaos of motherhood? How long had it been since she had engaged in meaningful exchanges outside of family obligations? In that moment, she resolved to tap into the energy she had for Mike and redirect it towards herself. "Mom, can I get some breakfast?" Mike's voice floated in from the kitchen, breaking her reverie. "Of course, just give me a second," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As she prepared breakfast, the rhythm of butter sizzling in a hot pan calmed her racing thoughts. With every flip of the pancake, she concocted a plan for her own renaissance. She wouldn't just explore hobbies or interests. She would actively seize her life back. It was time to awaken those forgotten parts of herself. Being a mother shouldn't mean suffocating her own desires. When breakfast was ready, she called Mike to the table. He shuffled in, still navigating the remnants of their earlier discussion. She could see the turmoil swirling in his eyes, a mixture of confusion and apprehension. "Mom, about last night," Mike began, his brow furrowing, but Sarah gently raised her hand. "Let's eat first," she suggested with a light smile. "We need fuel for the real conversation." They shared breakfast in an awkward silence, punctuated by the sound of forks scraping against plates. Each bite held unspoken questions that hovered like birds before flight. Would they soar together, or would they retreat and collide? "Are you okay?" Mike ventured cautiously. "I'm figuring things out, just like you," she replied, opting for transparency. "I've decided to take some steps toward my own happiness. I don't want you to worry that I'll just be here sulking." "Like what?" His interest piqued, but doubt still shadowed his expression. "I'm thinking of reigniting some of my interests from before I became a full-time mother. Maybe painting or taking that pottery class I always talked about." Mike's gaze shifted toward the window, contemplating her words. "But what if you don't have time for that? What about everything else?" "Making time will be my responsibility. You are growing and discovering your own path, and it's time I did the same. It's important for both of us, she asserted, her heart pounding as if she were on the cusp of an uncharted journey. Her resolve hung in the air, palpable and invigorating. Something shifted in Mike's demeanor, a flicker of respect perhaps, or a recognition of her autonomy beginning to sprout. Encouraged, Sarah laid out the plans she was beginning to envision, attending art workshops, connecting with old friends, and even considering a part-time job that aligned with her passion. "Do you really think you can juggle everything?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern, yet softened by curiosity. "I don't know," she admitted, meeting his gaze. "I'm willing to try. I deserve that chance." The profundity of her statement seemed to resonate. Mike nodded slowly, processing her ambition, his apprehension seemingly easing. "I just want what's best for you," he finally said, his sincerity cutting through the morning's tension. "I know," she responded, her voice steady. "And what's best for both of us is to keep evolving. This doesn't mean I care any less about you. It means we both can thrive without feeling confined by our roles." As breakfast came to an end, she felt a new sense of balance between them. The conversation had opened up channels she didn't realize had been closed. This wasn't just about Mike's growth, it was about her own reclamation. With their futures intertwined, yet leading in divergent directions, a quality of mutual support began to take root. Stepping into this new chapter, Sarah understood that she was merely at the beginning of her rediscovery. The possibilities ahead shimmered like unexplored roads, each promising a chance to confront fears and confront what truly mattered. She knew they had plenty of challenges to face, both as individuals and a family. As they cleared the table, a thought flashed through Sarah's mind. What if this journey unveiled a talent she had long since forgotten, a latent skill that could redefine her identity entirely? The thought sent a surge of excitement coursing through her veins. But would the path ahead bring rewards or unravel deeper complications? The notion teased at her consciousness, capturing her thoughts as she placed the last dish into the sink. The unresolved tension beckoned with a promise. The adventure was just beginning. The soft drone of the television buzzed in the background, its flickering screen illuminating the living room where Sarah sat with a notebook open across her lap. She scribbled with a fevered intensity, a new rhythm forming as she charted her thoughts on personal reclaiming. Each line breathed life into her ambitions, redefining them from mere musings to tangible goals. She had spent too long sidelined, watching her dreams collect dust, but now every word felt like an act of rebellion against her own complacency. "Mom, do you think I could make pancakes tomorrow morning?" Mike called from upstairs, uncertainty coloring his voice. "Of course, you can be the chef for breakfast," she answered, suppressing a smile. There was a warmth in his question, an indication of their evolving dynamic. He was embracing his role with curiosity, just as she was about to embrace hers. After finishing her notes, Sarah set the notebook down and picked up her phone. The weight of hesitation still lingered. Previous attempts to reconnect had often faltered, the phone feeling like an extension of her fears. But she promised herself, commitment to revival meant reaching out, even into the unknown. She quickly dialed the number of her college roommate, Lisa. It had been years since they last spoke, but Sarah yearned for the familiar connection, the laughter that once filled their conversations. "Hello?" Lisa answered, her voice bright and surprised. "Hey, it's Sarah," she squeaked, her heart thudding against her chest. Quick breaths countered the swell of anxiety. "I know it's been a while, but I thought it was time to say hello." "Oh my gosh, Sarah, how have you been?" The excitement in Lisa's tone reassured her, even as small butterflies danced in her stomach. As they exchanged stories, Sarah felt like a chrysalis breaking free. They reminisced about late-night talks and shared hopes, and with each word, the distance of years melted away. It wasn't just about reconnecting, it was about reestablishing parts of herself that had been dormant for too long. "Are you still painting?" Lisa asked, a note of nostalgia threading through her question. With hesitation, Sarah confessed, "Not really. I wish I did more of it, but motherhood took over." "Why don't you join me at that art workshop downtown next week? I stumbled upon it on social media," Lisa suggested. The suggestion hung in the air, electric and promising. A workshop, art and reconnecting all in one? Could this be the catalyst she was searching for? "I'd love that," she replied, the thrill of potential bubbling within her. After hanging up, Sarah leaned back against the couch, the weight of the world still atop her shoulders, but momentarily lifted. She could see the contours of change starting to take shape, little pinpricks of light amidst the fog that had settled over her. Later that evening, she gathered supplies for that long-ignored passion. Paintbrushes, canvases, and colors vying for her attention. The room transformed as she set everything up, each item a reminder not just of potential, but of the joy it could bring. It was a small step, but then again, every significant change began small. As she prepared to dive into her first strokes, the soft sounds of Mike's entrance pulled her back. He watched quietly, intrigued, yet uncertain. "Are you sure you'll have time for all this?" he asked cautiously, a crease forming on his brow. She looked at him, intent and resolute. "This is part of making time for us. When I engage in what makes me happy, it echoes into every aspect of our lives." He considered her carefully, weighing the significance of her words against the backdrop of their previously unarticulated fears. The night wafted on with creative currents as Sarah painted, each brushstroke unraveling a bit of anxiety and replacing it with possibility. Hours passed unnoticed, only punctuated by Mike's occasional inquiries about her progress. Filling empty canvases felt liberating, each splash of color a declaration of a woman reclaiming her identity. A reminder that she could still pursue passions no matter how long they had lain dormant. Yet, amidst the allure of creative freedom, doubt lingered if her varying ambitions could hold. Would she truly follow through, or would she fall back into the shadow of obligation once life piled its demands back upon her? The thought loomed large. Would she risk disappointment yet again, or could she confidently march forth, not just as a mother, but as Sarah, a complex individual seeking fulfillment? As she cleaned her brushes, a plan began to formulate in her mind. A leap to not just paint, but to exhibit her work someday, to show Mike that her dreams could be woven into their lives. But then, as she turned off the lights and headed to bed, a sudden flicker of uncertainty crept in. What if she couldn't juggle it all? The next morning would usher in the workshop, a new environment with strangers and expectations. Could she rise to the challenge, or would fear tether her to the familiar? The potential for growth danced before her, promising yet daunting. As she closed her eyes, the thrill of discovery mingled with a tightening anxiety. How could she boldly embrace the new while dodging disappointment? This budding ambition held answers she had yet to uncover, but one thing was clear: she was standing at the crossroads of transformation, teetering on the brink of the unknown. Determined to explore the uncharted, Sarah braced for the next phase, intensifying her journey of self-discovery, knowing with every pulse of her heart that the time had come to fully embrace what was waiting just beyond the horizon. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the table cluttered with bowls and ingredients. Sarah felt the familiar hum of excitement and anxiety racing through her as breakfast unfolded. The scent of sizzling batter filled the air, and Mike, ever eager, sat at the table flipping through a book about pancakes. This moment felt rich, tinged with a promise, the promise of a day that could change everything. After cleaning up the breakfast mess and giving Mike a quick hug, she grabbed a notepad, jotting down a list of what to bring to the art workshop. The act of preparing felt regimented and calming. She could control this small pocket of her day. With every item she noted, from paintbrushes to an apron, she crafted a shield against the swirl of uncertainty that began to gather in her stomach. By the time she reached the workshop venue, her heart raced not just from anticipation, but also from a creeping fear of inadequacy. The building loomed ahead, its entrance inviting yet intimidating, promising creation, but also confrontation. Would she walk through that door and find a welcoming community, or would she be met with judgment and distance? As she entered, the chatter of other participants filled her ears. A few heads turned, but Sarah buried her anxiety under a veneer of resolve. Seconds stretched like hours as she scanned the room, absorbing the diverse offerings of artistic expression around her. Easels, pots of paint, and the invigorating scent of turpentine and canvas mingled with the collective energy of creativity. "Hey, you must be Sarah," a voice broke through her contemplative bubble. A woman with short, vibrant hair and a wide smile approached, extending her hand. "I'm Lola. I'm leading the workshop today. We're so glad you're here." For a moment, Sarah's defenses eased. A genuine connection formed in that handshake, shattering the fear that had clung to her all morning. Lola's enthusiasm was tangible, a reminder of the joy in igniting creativity. Yet, as she settled at an easel with the others, self-doubt crept back in like a shadow. What if her painted visions weren't worthy? What if her brushed strokes were feeble compared to the vibrant work surrounding her? Silencing the internal critic, Sarah immersed herself in the task of preparing the paints. She plunged her brush into vibrant hues, seeking to express emotions long stifled. With each color she mixed, boldness replaced hesitance. The simplicity of painting became a complex language, speaking volumes of her journey, discovery, turmoil, and awakening. Halfway through the session, the instructor encouraged the group to share their canvases. Sarah hesitated, her heart pounding like a war drum. Sharing felt vulnerable, as though exposing her soul through art. But she remembered Mike's inquiry the night before, the way he had encouraged her to embrace happiness for the sake of their lives together, to let her passions ripple outward. When her turn came, she extricated the hesitant feelings that held her captive and stood before the group. She described the inspiration behind her painting, the experience of motherhood that had simultaneously nourished and constrained her creativity. The room fell silent, interest peaked, and Sarah felt an unexpected swell of confidence. The words came flowing freely, revealing not just her fears, but also the dreams she had once abandoned. Her voice trembled as she concluded, "I want to continue exploring this path. I want to show my son that it's never too late to rediscover oneself." The room erupted with applause, not just a polite response, but an acknowledgement of her brave honesty. Sarah's cheeks flushed, a blend of embarrassment and elation coursing through her veins. This experience was more profound than paint. It was unveiling her truth. Yet, amid the celebration, a flicker of uncertainty sparked again. Would this newfound acceptance in art carry over beyond the studio? Could she bring this energy home, framing it in their everyday lives? The looming question of how to merge these burgeoning passions with her existing responsibilities plagued her thoughts. As the class wound down and creative sparks mingled with laughter, Sarah felt a deepening empowerment. She was pushing boundaries, embracing the possibility of her ambitions while confronting the demands of her reality. While the introspective day soothed some anxieties, it also uncovered deeper dilemmas. What if she uncovered an undeniable urge to delve deeper into art, only to find herself crumbling under the weight of obligation back home? The journey she embarked upon was filled with choices, both thrilling and overwhelming, threading through the landscape of her aspirations. As she gathered her materials, a distinct resolve hummed within her. She decided then and there that this is not just about finding time to paint, it's about nourishing all facets of who she is. The sun dipped low as she stepped outside, the world around her pulsating with potential. This was only the beginning. Where dreams met action, she realized that her boundaries were self-imposed. In embarking on this creative journey, could she truly reshape her identity, redefining what it means to be a present mother while pursuing her passion? Over the horizon stretched the possibilities of tomorrow, where she would unveil another layer of her evolving self. Each heartbeat echoed a promise of transformation, but a single question remained, a question that hung heavily in the air. Was she truly ready to confront the depths of her own ambition, even as it tested the very fabric of her daily life? As Sarah walked away from the workshop, a melange of emotions surged within her. The sun hung lower in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across her path. Those moments spent sharing her art felt like stepping into a different version of herself, one that was unafraid to take the leap. Yet with each step forward, the weight of her obligations at home loomed larger. Back at her car, she fiddled with her keys, her mind racing. The workshop had been enlightening, but did she truly have the energy to nurture this creative spark amidst her daily responsibilities? She had tasted the thrill of connection, acceptance, and even applause. Now the challenges of the mundane seemed to sap her confidence. She plopped into the driver's seat, taking a long breath as she looked out at the vibrant world outside. What had changed after just a few hours? The realization dawned on her that art was not merely a hobby. It was a lifeline, a beacon guiding her back to a part of herself that she had long neglected. But that part demanded more than a fleeting afternoon. It asked for commitment, consistency. What would making time mean in practical terms? With Mike, their little routines often consumed their evenings. Flipping through the pages of his favorite books, watching cartoons together, those were the joys she cherished. But now she could imagine him observing her, witnessing his mother explore, struggle, and triumph in an entirely different light. Wouldn't that instill a sense of courage in him? But with this vision, doubts clouded her clarity. She could feel the shadows of guilt creeping in. Wasn't time with him a priority? The internal battle raged, the desire to pursue her passion versus fulfilling her duties as a mother. As she drove home, her mind swirled with potential solutions. Maybe she could carve out specific times each week dedicated solely to her art. Early mornings before Mike woke up, or late nights after he went to bed. Could she transform her creative aspirations into a shared journey, inviting Mike to paint beside her on some lazy Saturday afternoons? When she finally pulled into the driveway, a flurry of new ideas buzzed around her. Perhaps reconnecting creatively could deepen their relationship, bridging her worlds instead of keeping them apart. The two could embark on new adventures together, turning mundane Saturdays into colorful sessions of imagination. Sarah hesitated for a moment after stepping inside, absorbing the familiar surroundings that welcomed her home. The sound of laughter followed her from the living room. Mike was there, fully immersed in a game with his father. A part of her longed to join, to forge ahead with that energy she had felt earlier. But another part clung to inertia. She could either join this warm scene or retreat to the corner of her own ambitions. "Mom, come play with us." Mike's voice rang out, and it was like a magnet pulling at the dual fibers of her heart. The call beckoned her, and Sarah understood this was a moment that could alter their fabric of daily life. Could she integrate both worlds? She approached the excitement unfolding in front of her, her hand brushing against the notepad where ideas of art swirled around, ideas that now felt more tangible. "Okay, give me a moment," she called back, heart racing with renewed determination. How to show them she was not just a mother, but a woman capable of joy and creativity. This was her moment to blend her newfound resolve with her existing role, a dance of balancing aspirations with love. As laughter filled the air, a plan began to form. She envisioned starting a family art night where each brushstroke painted a story together. Nothing felt more grounding than knowing that her personal journey could also weave beautifully into the lives of those she cherished. Yet deep down, an unsettling realization nagged her. Would her family truly embrace the changes before them, or would they resist something new, favoring the safe and familiar? The threads of internal conflict tightened within her, leaving her anxious yet determined. The potential for conflict loomed like storm clouds, but she could feel the energy shift in her core. Perhaps this would be her greatest canvas yet, one of blending roles and redefining relationships. As they gathered for the evening, Sarah witnessed the interplay of love and expectation in their laughter. Could she nurture them while also nurturing herself? With each stroke of her brush, she saw a path ahead, a path leading to both growth and understanding. The day faded into twilight, and as dinner was served, Sarah felt a dual sense of excitement and fear. A lingering question emerged, echoing in the depths of her mind. What vulnerabilities would she expose when attempting to merge her roles? The crossroads of art and motherhood lay ahead. As she prepared to express her intention, she wondered, how would she unveil a new chapter that brought her son along on this journey? The laughter from the living room felt almost overwhelming, a reminder of the warmth that familial joy could bring. Sarah stepped deeper into the home, her heart pulled in conflicting directions. She wrestled with her unease, the fear that something genuine and precious could dissolve like a watercolor on wet paper. As they cleaned up, a part of her braced for the inevitable. It seemed too precarious, this new weaving of creativity into their lives. Could she maintain the energy necessary for her art while ensuring Mike's new interest flourished? Brushing aside her hesitation, Sarah crafted a resolution. She would not allow doubt to sabotage them. Instead, she would nurture both her ambition and their shared creativity. There was palpable urgency in the air, a call to action. She turned to Mike, inspiration alight in her heart. "Let's make it a weekly tradition, buddy. Family art night every Friday." Joy burst forth across his face, and Sarah found herself smiling genuinely. But beneath that smile lay a question that lingered like the last stroke of paint. Were they truly ready to embrace this change? As she tucked Mike into bed that night, a potent mix of hope and apprehension bubbled within her. The journey ahead promised both challenge and connection, but one thought echoed persistently. Would she be able to sustain the momentum of this renewed passion without losing sight of her family's needs? Exhaling slowly, she prepared for tomorrow's uncertainties, clinging to the belief that their story was being rewritten one color at a time. With a sense of resolve enveloping her, she drifted into a restless sleep, yearning for clarity on how to uphold her promise. What awaited her when the sun rose again? Would their bond strengthen with this new tradition, or would it buckle beneath the weight of expectations? The morning sun filtered through the curtains, warming the room with a soft glow. Sarah awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, the remnants of anxiety evaporating like the morning mist. Today was Friday, the first official family art night. Excitement thrummed in her veins, and she quickly prepared breakfast, the aroma of pancakes and syrup infusing her home with an inviting charm. She had a vision for this evening, a spark of creativity she was determined to ignite within her family. As Mike bounded into the kitchen, still rubbing sleep from his eyes, Sarah felt the thrill of creating something new together. "Guess what?" she said, a grin spreading across her face. "Tonight we're going to create our art masterpieces." "Can I paint a giant monster?" he asked, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Absolutely. Let's make it the biggest, baddest monster ever," Sarah replied, her spirits soaring. Through the course of the day, work responsibilities rolled into the background. She navigated her tasks with a clarity that she hadn't felt in years, knowing that a piece of her awaited its debut later that evening. This sense of commitment to the new tradition infused her with energy. It felt empowering, grounding her identities as both a mother and an artist. When evening finally fell, they gathered supplies in the living room, a whirlwind of colors, brushes, and canvases strewn about. The air crackled with creative energy. "Let's make it a contest," Mike suggested as he mixed blue and green paint, his little fingers dancing in delight. "Okay, but it has to be fun, not just about winning. The goal is to enjoy what we create together," Sarah reminded him, sidestepping the competitive spirit that sometimes overshadowed their interactions. As they began to paint, laughter and playful banter filled the room. Each brushstroke became a symphony of colors and stories, where they shared their imaginative ideas and encouraged each other. It was a delightful immersion into a world where art broke through barriers of age and expectation. But even within this happiness, doubt lingered in the corner of her mind, whispering uncertainties. What if this enthusiasm waned, becoming another forgotten ritual? Would Mike lose interest, like she had in her own passions? Deep breath, she thought to herself. The intent was to share joy through creation, not focus on outcomes. As the night unfolded, Sarah began to channel her childhood inspirations, allowing her strokes to be free and unrestrained. Each pass of the brush reminded her that art was as much about the journey as it was about the final piece. Mike's monster took shape on his canvas next to hers, a bright explosion of colors that encapsulated his youthful imagination. "I can't wait for you to see mine," he exclaimed as he added the final touch, a swirling tail that seemed to come alive. When they finally stepped back to compare their work, Sarah felt an immense sense of pride, not just in her painting, but in the bond they were creating. "These are amazing! Look at what we've accomplished together," she exclaimed, each word bubbling with warmth. As she gazed at Mike's painting, she felt a wave of fulfillment wash over her. This was more than an art night. It was a testament to their growth as a family, a dynamic evolving before her eyes. They were cultivating connection through creativity, forging memories, one painted moment at a time. Finally, they sat down together, staring at their creations, the room alive with laughter and color. "Let's continue this every week," Mike declared, enthusiasm infectious. "Every week it is," Sarah replied, her heart swelling. The promise of a new rhythm warmed her, creating anticipation for what lay ahead. In the backdrop of this family tradition, she realized something remarkable. By pursuing her passion for art, she was not just reclaiming a piece of herself, she was also enriching their shared experiences. As she cleaned up, Sarah felt a surge of emotional pride. The correspondence blossomed between them as they discussed what they loved about art, how it felt to express everything that had been left unsaid for far too long. She had transformed from a subtly conflicted caregiver into a confident woman, embracing her individuality right alongside her motherhood. The clarity sparked within her was undeniable. She could share her journey with Mike, demonstrating balance, not deficiency. It was this realization that etched a smile on her face as she tucked Mike into bed that night. The doubts that had once threatened her ambitions faded under the glow of newfound assurance. She would strive for more art nights, more shared adventures and creativity, and more moments together, weaving their stories through color, laughter, and connection. The questions that had lingered in her heart began to unravel into certainty. Yes, the challenge of maintaining this balance existed, but tonight proved that the two worlds could coexist, blossoming into a life where both nurtured and thrived. With that profound understanding nestled securely within her, Sarah drifted into a restful sleep, imagining endless canvases awaiting their stories. Would they create challenges ahead? Absolutely. But they would navigate them together, painting the future with colors that spoke of love and evolution. The possibilities felt boundless, and so did her determination. And so, as the night deepened and stars twinkled outside, Sarah embraced the dawn of transformation she had long desired, a journey of self-discovery intertwined with a commitment to nurturing the bond she now felt stronger than ever. What awaited her tomorrow? Only time would tell, but with every heartbeat, she knew this was just the beginning. Now, dear audience, if you've journeyed with Sarah through her incredible transformation, this is your moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that promise to inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps more stories reach the brave hearts who need to hear them. Comment below your reactions and theories about how Sarah's journey unfolds, because we want to hear from you. And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of spreading hope and resilience.